Hey everyone, welcome back to the MSP show here on Blog Talk Radio. My name is Stuart Crawford, and it's always great to have you guys listening in to our weekly podcast on the MSP community. And we do things a little different. We actually tell stories of MSPs out there doing some great stuff. Not so much focusing on the vendors, but we get a vendor every once in a while because they're an important part of the channel too. But we like to tell the stories of what other MSPs are doing to be successful, especially in times like this. As time of this recording, we're in the middle of May 2020. We're about, some people have been locked in jail for 60 days on this quarantine. Some of us, lucky enough here in Florida, we've been able to get out a little bit and enjoy some of the surroundings. So if you're listening to us on Blog Talk Radio, make sure you click that little follow button up on the top right-hand corner. If you're watching or listening to us on YouTube through one of our YouTube videos, click on the subscribe button below and that little alarm bell next to us, and you'll get notified when we have some great new content that we do right now. So today I'm going to welcome my good colleague. His name is Rick Thomas from ProTechnical out in the Reno, Nevada area, also services into Portland, Oregon. Rick, before we get started, give us an update. What's happening out in, I'm assuming you're in Reno since, everybody's kind of locked down in certain parts of the country these days.
Right. Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. We are in Reno, Nevada. Headquarters for ProTechnical is here. And we came back to work last week. We're after a lockdown of about 5 weeks. And we're taking a lot of precautions, really limiting our on-sites and scheduling things up as needed after hours and whatnot, or if we have to do something during the day, making sure we have a clear path to where we have to go. So the area, as far as the area we're in, it seems that people are starting to hustle and bustle again, and so it's interesting. And but everyone's got a lot of separation, and there's this oddity, like when you walk up on someone and you normally would shake their hand, now you're like, what do I do? So
that's interesting. Yeah, I was getting my healthcare insurance looked at yesterday. I went to the insurance office, and the person reached out to shake my hand, and I reluctantly shook their hand back. But when I got back in the car, I quickly got my hand sanitizer out, just because you never know, right? So yeah, it was kind of odd. So hey, Rick, tell us a little bit about ProTechnical. And your journey. How did you get started in this industry? Did you set out that way? Because some people, go intentionally into managed services or IT, and some people just kind of fall into it by accident. What's your story?
So I was actually working as an IT consultant, and when things kind of fell apart in 2008, I was laid off. And at that point, I had to make some decisions on what I was going to do. If I couldn't seem to get employed because everybody was unemployed and losing their homes and whatnot, and opted to start ProTechnical up. Was a break fix shop, typical trunk slammer at that time, as it's relatable these days, what we call those guys. And I really didn't have an office. Started out of the garage, and here we are, 11 years later. We're actually coming into our 12th year,
and we're still in the garage.
Yeah, we're in a bigger garage now. Yeah, we've moved 4 times, and it's been a journey. And I think I came in at a good time. It was a difficult time to start. I had people tell me that if you can make this happen now in this downturn, you'll definitely rock it when things turn up, and we absolutely did. 2020 was actually when it started looking like to be the best year ever. And obviously it's toned down a bit, but it's not doom and gloom. We're very blessed to be in this industry. I wouldn't have told you that 5 years ago, but starting a company or 7 years ago, it's tough those first 5 years, and it's make it or break it. And it's true. Everything you read, I wanted to beat that curve, and I couldn't. As fast as I run, as hard as I run, I still couldn't do it. 10,000 hours of time into the system, and it was still we're still just barely getting there. So. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's interesting journey because I've been doing this now for 10. And lucky enough, same almost the same story you had. I was running an MSP in Calgary at the time, Rick. And in 2008, I always say I had my best month in sales ever. I sold $325,000 in product and services and softwares and stuff in August of 2008, and I had my worst month ever in September 2008. I think I went down from 325,000 in net sales to 50,000 in 1 month. It was unbelievable how it just dried up all of a sudden, and that was around the same time that issue happened. And I was at that time I know a little bit what you're going through in Nevada, because at that time I was doing CIO work for a company called Passion Parties in Las Vegas. We just finished moving them from San Francisco to Las Vegas, and I was transitioning to a local MSP in Vegas because I was getting tired of going back and forth from Vegas to Calgary and San Francisco all the time. So I was transitioning over to a new MSP, and the gentleman that I was working with bought a $1.5 million house in Las Vegas for $225,000. It was unbelievable.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, so so Nevada was one of the areas I would think hit pretty hard in 2008. Now, it's interesting to say that the hustle and bustle is back. I had the same feeling. I've been in the office now for a couple of days here, not my choice. I'm getting some renovations done on my house, so I had to come into the office, and I'm only a mile away from my home. And I went out for lunch today for the first time in almost 2 months, and the restaurant I went to was busy. It was, they're practicing social distancing, but it was busy. I had to wait like 5 or 10 minutes for a table. So I think in some pockets of the country, people are really trying hard to get back to normal, and we're seeing that across the MSP space. A lot of MSPs are some people are feeling the pinch, but most people are at least the good ones are not experiencing that much pain. I'll put it that way. Not too much pain. Some pain, but not too much.
Correct. I would agree. My peer group members I would say about 80 to 90% of them are in that boat. And there's maybe a small percentage just because of their smaller markets, or either they're not diversified enough in what they do. Maybe they don't have multiple vertical markets that they handle. And if you're an MSP and you just do hospitality, then, I don't care how great you are right now, you're hurting. So one of the big takeaways, and again, we're fortunate enough to have a diverse vertical market segment, and not have to be getting hit in one particular market. Gaming, hospitality in Nevada they're two big markets for this state, and they're still shut down. I drive by the casinos on the way to work, and it's eerie. Those places they're like 7-Elevens, man. They're always open. They don't put locks on their doors, right? Mm-hmm.
That's right. It's funny we're having this conversation about verticals, because up until about 6 months ago, I would have said, really specialize on one, maybe two, stretch to 3 verticals. And we actually have one colleague in DC who's exclusively dental. And he was really nervous going into this, thinking all the dentist offices are closing down. But his experience was totally different. He said this is all the time. They went in and started doing projects and revamping all the systems that they couldn't normally do in the middle of seeing patients. So they would get a nice little break from seeing patients. They got some work done, upgrades done and stuff. So his experience was totally different. He was busier than busier could be. Plus I heard a rumor that there was an MSP in that area that he competes with that had a security breach, and unfortunately they lost some business to him because he went in and cleaned up the breach. But I don't know the company name. I heard a rumor that happened. So he maybe got a little fortune from that happening as well. So Rick, tell me about what are your core beliefs or your value systems that you instill at ProTechnical with your team and the people that you take care of, like your clients and vendors that you work with?
So great question. That's evolved over the years from complicated, actually from nothing to something very complicated, to looking at, what are some of the bigger companies using for their values, and it was always trying to emulate. It's like, who we're going to be like. and because I couldn't quite get a grasp on it. And then one day I was working with our COO, Christopher West, and I mentioned something. I said, you know what? It's all about our team focusing. It's about having a purpose, and it's about being accountable to each other on our team and to our clients. And I said, that's it. I said, it's not this long mantra you have to remember. That you come to work with a focus. You have focused work. You're here for a purpose. You have purpose when you arrive. When you leave, you feel good. You helped somebody out. You made their day better through technologies or however that your tasks were for that day. And you're accountable to each other, to doing things right, making sure you're doing right by your team, by the client. And that was it. And we refined that last year. It was like, wow, okay, decade plus, we finally got it. And I feel really comfortable with it. It was all the other ones, it seemed like, yeah, the shoe kind of fits, but it's a little loose. If I wear a thicker sock today, I guess the shoe fits. No, and, there may be a lot of people that would disagree and they want the big, long, drawn-out statement that's on the wall. Everyone has to rehearse it and know it, be able to recite it. I want people to know and feel it. Focus. This is what we do. Focus, right? Get the work done and be accountable for it. Have a purpose. Why we're here. What is our purpose for being here? Even for me, I have to look at that as I direct this company. What is my purpose? What am I trying to give back to the community? What am I doing for our clients? Why do they want us versus the other guys? And so, that's it in 3 words.
Yeah, it's interesting because I kind of look back and say that kind of sounds like Starts With Why from Simon Sinek. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that publication.
No, I'm not actually.
There's a great TED video. Yeah, Google it one day. There's a great TED Talk, 7-minute TED Talk that he did many years ago on Starts With Why, and it compares Apple and Dell and why Apple kind of has the cult following they do, and where Dell was just a great computer builder, but really didn't have there's nobody that's going to get a Dell logo tattooed on their back, where people get tattoos of Apple's logo on there. It's kind of the same thing.
You're so right. You're so right. Oh my
God. Why
God.
do people get Harley tattoos on their arms and not Honda, motorcycle logos?
Right. Yeah. Excellent point.
Yeah, so good video to watch, and I have something similar to the same thing. Mine is just mine is very simple. Go the extra mile always. There's no traffic jams on the extra mile, and I think that's what separates us from a lot of the other marketing agencies out there. Obviously, because I don't know how many guys in your HTG group that we're working with now, but obviously Dan King thought very highly of us to recommend it to all his peers. Yeah,
I want to say there's probably 6 in our group of 10, so over 50%. And I had to make the jump. It was one of those things that it wasn't just a shiny object. It's like, what are these guys doing? And there's so many other people that would come in and do their spiel, and it's like, yeah, okay, thanks, appreciate it. Boy, I hope I don't sound like that when I go meet with a client, because they'll never sign my deal. So yeah, kudos to doing it right.
That's very important. So I think that's why I think you and I hit it off, because we kind of share the same principles. We just approach it from a different angle, but at the core, I believe the principles are aligned, which is very important for any client partner relationship. Is there's got to be some alignment there for sure. And so, Rick, what are your clients that you work with? Do they come back and say, "Hey, Rick, here's why we continue to work with you guys. Here's what we like about what you guys do," and if we don't know that yet, then we'll have to do some case study calls and definitely get that information. But what do you, in your belief, why do you think companies continue to work with ProTechnical? What do you think is in their brains there? I promise question. I think I just drew you one.
There are a number of things that cross my mind when I'm asked that question, and the first thing that comes to mind is the ranking of our client base, and we use an A through D rating. And so the A players on our list are the ones that buy into the solution stack 100%, pay on time, and understand that IT is a competitive advantage. And then you move down to the Bs, which are not buying a complete stack. You drop into the C's, which are maybe not getting into the stack at all, but a chance to move up to a B. There's some things there that maybe we can move them up, and then you have the D players that they don't understand IT, and we didn't understand them or really have the opportunity to understand them before onboarding them and doing that due diligence, which is difficult to do sometimes, and so they just dropped into a D, and then we're just waiting to burn them off, whether it's due to a contractual agreement. But so when I think of the A, B, C, and Ds, I think of how the A's always complement us, and they just come out and overflow with compliments constantly for the team. And then when I'm speaking to one of our point of contacts on the A teams, the A clients, it's things like, without you guys, we knew where we were at before, and we thought we had things dialed. And now we have you, and we go, wow, this is incredible. The foresight, the things that you're doing to keeping us current, you're not breaking the bank to do it. You take it from a perspective as if you own this company. And that's what I tell them. I said, absolutely. I look at your needs and I look at your wants, and we discuss those things. And sure, we all want this or that, but sometimes you can't get those wants right away, and we can set those up. And it's that feedback of, I don't know where we would be without you now. And we get that from the A's. And don't get me wrong, like I would say 80% of our clients are A's. The B, C's, and D's, sometimes that, again, we didn't vet them out good enough. And, that's, I think that happens with any company. You think it's something, and next thing you know, it's not that. And you're like, great, how do I get a divorce?
Yeah, interesting question. Definitely. How do you get out of a bad relationship? I can tell you what not to do. I know that from for sure. But actually, it's funny because I had a conversation with a very good colleague yesterday on the phone, and I put it in my daily observations email today about value. And he told me, he said, Stuart, you're not the judge of value in this relationship. I says, I am. I said, that's an interesting way to look at it. I never, because I thought I wasn't doing a lot for him. Like I thought we were, falling short, and I wanted to have a good discussion about that. And he said, trust me, if I thought you were falling short, I would have had a conversation with you a long time ago. I love everything you guys do for me. And I'm thinking, here I am stewing over it, the night before, because I lose sleep over these things. And I think, so I sent him an email. So I think we got to talk about our relationship. I said, and he gave me a call the next day. I said, what's the matter? I said, I just don't think I'm giving you value, and I don't think I'm doing enough for you. He says, you're doing a lot for me. Everything's great. I went, all right, well, he says, the value is in the eye of the beholder, and I hold the value in this relationship. And I went, okay, well, I get it now. So if you're happy, then I'm happy, right? But that's the thing is, and I think Rick, if I look at MSPs and just MSP offerings, I think I don't want to sound like I'm being Mr. Negative here, but I think there's a lot of people out there who tell MSPs, you got to do it this way. This is the only way to do it. And I think to the end client, sometimes some hybrid of, monthly recurring cost with hourly or full-time hourly or fixed cost hour. Now, you're right. You have the right, Rick, to say yes or no, I don't want to work that way. But I think there's some, I have experienced in my MSP days, there were some really good clients that we had that we didn't manage service for them, but we just clocked every hour against it. And they turned out to be a very good client. I don't know if I would do that today, but I would, look at it. So, I mean, it's, do you look at different kinds of, client needs when you're meeting with people? You mentioned A, B, C's, and D's, obviously, but, are you looking at, how you build them as a measurement of your, of your feeling of that A, B, and C?
So, from the billing standpoint of how we handle each client, they're all basically the same in that we flat rate up to a point. So we have what we include, and I think most MSPs do that. Years ago, there was a big push, and I want to say it was at least a decade or more. I would celebrate fixed shop, but it was this whole thing that, hey, we'll charge you a flat rate, and it's all you can eat. And that might have started with, I think it's Gary
Pico was one. I remember sitting down watching a guy named Matt Makowitz. I think he's selling real estate now, but he was kind of the pioneer in the MSP space. I'm talking like 2004.
So there was a big push to do that, and everyone was kind of following suit. And that happens in our industry, probably like many. The MSP space is like, hey, what are you doing, and how do I emulate, or you look like you're successful. And we adopted that for a bit, and then we actually started doing something that I don't think many other MSPs are doing, where I call it a consumption ratio, and it's really it's kind of an abuse top end, like a red line on an engine, right? Mm-hmm. And your engine will rev up to a certain RPM, and then that's it. The rev limiter kicks in if it's a newer car. You just can't blow the engine up. Unlike an older car where you'd rev limit and you'd blow the motor up. You just mash the throttle and blow that motor and you're done. So with that kind of idea in mind, we put rev limiters on all our agreements. And so we know what an A client takes to manage, because an A client is buying into our solution stack. So an A client can actually have a higher rev limit as far as what we'll do for them and the utilization, where B, C, and D don't, and those drop. And as you get into the C's and D's, the rev limiter is a lot lower. And the problem is that I'm not going to have my team overutilized for any client that doesn't invest in their own systems. If it takes me twice as long to work on a computer of theirs that's outdated, and they've been advised of that, and they choose not to do it for whatever reason, they may stay in that CD category. And being in those lower categories, the penalty is your rev limiter lowers, and if you surpass that, then I'm going to bill you for anything over that amount. So it's different than block time. It's different than hourly. It's basically saying, hey, you know what? It's like all you can eat, sort of, with a limitation. It's like getting one of those. You win that contest that says, hey, you get free ice cream for a year. But if you look at the fine print, it says 1 scoop a day for 365 days, not, you can come in any time of the day, all day, and scoop up, whatever, right? So it's a limiter. It's really what it is. And I feel it had to be done because of the commoditizing of our space. When you have people that come in and they say, yeah, I can do that for a lot less. Yeah, maybe, but you're probably not doing everything that we do. So it's an interesting blend, and it's something that I'm still developing. It's working.
Yeah, it's an interesting model. I've never heard that model before, but it makes sense. Because
you heard it here first. You heard it here first. So
well, it's funny because
anyone listening to this podcast are going to be like, "Hey, that's a great idea. How do I do that?"
It's funny because you mentioned that, because I did something similar to that. It's going to be hard for me to describe it here, but I used to take, what's the absolute all-in seat price that I can, what's it going to cost me to deliver service per seat? And then I would have my desired markup, if it's 2 or 3 times that all-in seat price. That, to me, that would be the lowest I would ever go, right? And still make money. And I would factor in all my costs into that, like lights, cell phones, staffing costs, all that stuff into that. And then I had 4 questions I would run them through, and it was ranked on a scale of 1 to 4. And I'm going to try to remember all the questions. One was like, how old is the technology that we're supporting? If it was brand new, they would get a 1. If it was really, really old, they get a 4. And then how complex is the environment? Do they have lots of line of business apps or lots of special applications? If they had none, they got a 1. If they had lots, they got a 4. And it was all subjective, right? There was no math behind it, no science behind it. And then the third question was, drawing a blank now. The fourth question was the butthole factor. How much of a jerk is this person to work with? If they're really easy to work with, they got a 1. If they're a total jerk, they got a 4. And when people said, okay, and I would take that, all-in seat price times the desired market, and then an average of those 4 questions on a scale of 1 to 4, and that would be the price I would sell managed services for to those guys. And if clients said, hey, how do I get my price lower per month? I would say, well, let's get a whole bunch of new computers and get rid of this old stuff, or put a new person in charge of the company who's not a bad dude to deal with. Give me somebody that I can talk to, and that would lower the score. And so there was a lot of factors that went in. And what I realized was this, Rick, is that I can have two companies side by side, one server, 25 users, one server, 25 users. And what we're taught by pundits like Gary Peak and all the others that are out there, you need to charge X amount of dollars per seat. Well, by your consumption ratio and what my ratios were, that one client who is 25 users with one server may never call your help desk and never, buy all the stuff that you want, blah, 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 blah. And your support costs to support them are very low. And the other company right next door to them with the same setup, but they decided they want to buy all their own computers from Best Buy. They're not taking any of your advice, and they're not investing in training of their staff. Well, their cost of support you go up drastically. And
correct.
If you did that with the pundit model, I call it, you're making less money on that needy one and more money on the first one, and it should be even throughout. Love to hear your thoughts on that.
You're absolutely correct. And so, how many years ago was that, though? Was that?
Well, I sold my MSP in 2008, so it was probably 2007.
So it's been a while, right? Oh wait, yeah, you mentioned that earlier. So yes, there were ways, and what you were doing there is basically very similar to what I'm doing, except the one thing that is not constant is that there were much fewer MSP players in the market. So if you were to take that same 2008 or pre-2008 mentality or methodology and say, I'm going to do that today, you would go in and you would say, well, you got older machines, you got this and that, and so your price is going to be more, correct? That's basically what I'm hearing, correct?
Yeah, basically, yeah. Okay,
right. So your multiplier goes up for the cost. However, because we're become very commoditized, the two or three other companies that I'm bidding against are going to come in and will not use that, and they don't really care because they're not, their operational maturity level isn't as great. They're looking at getting revenue, and if they get enough market share in the market, then at some point they may be the bigger player. So almost like it's a bait and switch on their side, where I'll just do it. We need dollars, we need cash flow. My guys aren't doing anything anyway, so we'll take that hit. So now you're competing because I'm going to say I'll do it for $3,000 and they'll do it for $1,500. At that point, I can't even show the value. If everyone else comes in at 50% less, usually what I see is about 30% less, but I'm just using big numbers. So by using the consumption ratio, you can still come in today's market competitively, right? Because now you're not looking at it and saying, hey, your stuff's outdated, I'm going to charge you more. It's like, I'm going to charge you the same amount as I would charge the guy next door who's got everything sparkly new, right? But when they hit the rev limiter, they get billed, and they know that up front. And that's okay, because people don't look at that to lock up deals. At the end of the day, they look at that bottom line. They're like, ProTechnical's at $1,800, the other guys are at $1,500, it's $300, I don't know. They seem like the better plan. They got a better thing going on. They seem a little more, they've been around longer. Yeah, it's worth us to spend an extra, $3,600 a year. We'll do that. Even though they're not maybe as mature. But as soon as they hit that rev limiter, we've already engaged. Some people may call it bait and switch. I don't. I say I'm going to come in and do it for this price. And then my objective as their new IT management is to let them know that, hey, we need to change some of these things out. These things are costing you, right? These things are actually costing you. So when you get that overage bill because you went over 20 hours of utilization with my team, we wouldn't have that. And I can also look at the utilization through Bright Gauge and see the BI that's coming back to say, was it my team that let them down, or was it the customer's technologies? And that's the beauty of it, because I don't have to bill over that consumption rate. I can say, hey, they went over, but I looked at it. We had a couple of new guys on the team. They're still trying to figure it out. I'm not going to send them that bill. I'm going to waive that. And so I always err on the side of the client, like I think most MSPs should be doing, like all actually MSPs should be doing, but I don't think they all do. And so So we lose, but when we lose, I have to make my team better. And if we're losing because it's the client's infrastructure, then we have to make their team better. In other words, their IT infrastructure. Yet I still have the ability to be their IT provider because I came in at a competitive rate like everyone else. So the red limiter actually takes that ambiguity, I can't say that word, being ambiguous,
yeah,
away and almost levels the playing field so that I can say, yeah, we can do that. And we don't hide it. We say, hey, here's your consumption ratio. It's just X to 1. So in the worst case scenario, it's about 0.25 to 1. And the best case scenario, really good clients will go over 1 to 1. And that means that if I'm managing 20 computers, they have 20 hours of resources available to them a month. And that's not the automation. That's none of the other stuff. That's like man hours that are actually working the problem. And that should work. When I work out the numbers, our A clients are some as high as 1.25 to 1, and they never breach it. They never breach it. And if they do breach it, it's probably something that maybe should have been a statement of work or something that that needed a new server.
It's the exception, rather the exception rather than the rule.
Yeah, absolutely. And so that's why that works, I think, in today's market with such commoditizing of the MSP space, so that you stay competitive. But when you do get a client, because you can get a client that may not have that, the PETA question 4 ratio being cranked up, but they just have older hardware. And if they're going to invest, they just haven't had someone to lead them, then that's not fair to say, hey, we're going to charge you more. They may just not have known. And then you do have the ones of those, butthole question 4 ones that you mentioned that you didn't know it yet, and that you're in there. I'm dealing with one right now that I have a call with them next week. It's like, here's what we got to do, and if they're up for their renewal, and if they don't renew, I'm gonna wish them down the road to another MSP. It's like, we have a minimum standard of what we need here, and you didn't hit it all year. It's been a year. We need to fix it. We need to bring. I'm not gonna tell him he's a D client, but he needs to move up into the C's, and then that Disney top box thing. Keep moving them up till they get to the top box.
Yeah, and I think you understand that sometimes people are not going to get there, and sometimes they will. That's the nice thing. Some people don't know what they don't know. One thing I want to circle back with, Rick, is you mentioned a whole competitive thing about the commoditization of our industry, which has been happening for a while now. And that person who's looking, comes in, $25 or $30. I think you said 30% is what you see across the board on that. Is sometimes, just sometimes, it's better to let that company go to that 30% off guy and realize. And then we launch a marketing campaign afterwards and says, so how are the other guys working out for you? Are they doing a good job for you? What are they doing for you? What are they not doing for you? And it's remarkable. Sometimes some of the feedback we see is that, oh, dude, I made the wrong decision. I should have went with you guys. These guys it was all great during the sales process, but when service delivery time came, they were nowhere to be seen.
So I agree with you that sometimes it's better to let them go down the road, but you don't know yet.
Exactly.
And so that's the thing. I would, one of the other things that when I say this 1 year agreement has come up last year, I would say mid-year 2019, we said, you know what? We just kept on looking at what do we got for entrance barriers, and we just got rid of our annual contracts, and it's just month to month. And so I can go in there competitively and lock them in, and then if they're no good, then I'll burn them off. Did we burn some time? Yeah, but you know what? We should be able to hold that client by our own merit, but what we do, how great we are. And I don't want to have to because what you mentioned, there's one that's coming back to us after leaving. They were with us. They thought we were too costly. Our contract ended. We had a 2 or 3 year agreement with them. They left. They went to another company for a year. They called me. They said, we want to come back. We didn't know. We didn't realize it. But that's not what's going to happen.
The grass wasn't greener on the other side.
Yeah, but I can tell you right now, 9 out of 10 times that won't happen because, most owners of companies, to be an owner of a company is like being the front man on a stage, right? Those are the guys, and I'm not the guy with the big head, but I'm just saying those guys have to have enough moxie to get in front of people and say, you know what, I'll put my money where my mouth is, and I'm going to make this happen. Well, you got a drummer hiding behind the drum set, You get the guitar player hiding behind his guitar, keyboardist behind his key. You know what I'm saying? The singer's out front. He's basically there's a mic stand and that's it, if that. And owners of companies are just like that. So they're not going to eat crow. If they screwed up, there's no way they're going to call back their MSP. 10% will. I'm going to say no way. 10% may call back. The other 90% would rather go and find yet another MSP.
And so it's interesting you say that, because we had the exact same thing happen to us. One of our clients won a free year of marketing services from a company in California, which I won't name, but I think you can put one and one together. And took their 1 year free offering, and it wasn't for several months later that I found out they were working with my primary competitor in Clearwater, which is a different story for another day. That they went there. I said, well, why did you guys come back to us after it didn't work out for the other guys? He said, like, dude, I'm not going to come back after leaving you on the way we did. I said, you know what? The door is always open. Feel free to walk through. So I did a pretty bad job of letting them know, hey, you know what? The door is open if you want to come back. No shame. I understand. And I actually have another one who's that a really, really good friend of mine, and was a great client, and wanted a bit more that we couldn't deliver. And he went elsewhere. And I always tell him every couple of weeks, if you make a change, the door's always open. You can always come back. We're not going to, I'd love to get him back. But then, that's, so I think that also you have to be, you have to have a humane conversation with people. So, you know what, go and try it out. If it doesn't work, Rick, if you want him back, you got to, this is something you do.
Right.
Some people leave and you just don't want them to ever come back.
Oh, exactly. We have those. They're gone and good.
The ones
that one shut.
The ones that kind of shock you, oh my God, I wasn't expecting that to happen. I thought we were doing a good job. I always say, the door's always open, and there's no shame if it doesn't work out for you. We're here for you. And I always say that we're here for you, and I think that's important. Back on to ProTechnical for a sec, Rick. What's your present timing not included in this conversation? Let's say everything was going well in 2020, and we knew there was a recession coming. We had 8 or 9 years of a really good economy. We knew that something was going to happen eventually. Actually, I have a video on YouTube that says in late 2018, I predicted it in 2019, which didn't happen, but it's here now. Where do you see ProTechnical going? Is managed services kind of the core? Obviously guys are getting into security now, and I understand that piece, but where do you see ProTechnical 5 or even 10 years down the road? Is it going to morph into something different, or is it still going to be kind of the core providing services for clients?
So it's already begun its metamorphosis, and we've refined our security stack late last year, and we started selling it. And previous to that, we were moving into the private cloud space, which has been a good market. It's very it's where I think MSPs were starting 15 years ago. The private cloud space is different because it's not something you can just go to Amazon and buy private cloud space. It requires a lot of technical expertise to put it in place, have a team that can support it, and also is in line with a lot of the mentality that people have these days, these owners of companies, where do I need a server on premise kind of thing, right? So we're moving into that space, and we're strong in that space, and we feel that we also built some stickiness in those spaces because it's our private cloud, we own it, and if the customer wants to leave, that's fine. It's still their data, but at the end of the day, it's our hardware. So they have to. It makes it difficult for an MSP to do like a telco slamming that used to happen 20 years ago, where you would just you had AT&T and all of a sudden you had XYZ phone carrier bill. Like, how did that happen? MSPs could traditionally come in on a bid and take your work away pretty quickly without you even knowing it. It was usually hey, we need the router password, and then once you got that call, you kind of knew that you were done. and everything else was already kind of in play. So, I don't have any problem giving somebody their data, but it's not their data center. So some of the MSPs that are strong enough to either invest in their own data centers or get into colos or whatever it might be, will have advantages over the smaller MSPs. In that space, for whatever reason, they don't have the capital outlay or the resources to manage it, because it does take a different beast to do it. We call them lift and shifts, to lift the server off an on-prem server and shift it into the cloud, and it's got to be done in a timely fashion so the client doesn't see any downtime. Right? We want to just segue it right off. And there's other components and pieces that come to it. So private cloud, big. That's where we're headed. That's not a commoditized market yet. Even with Azure, it's not the same. And what we do in private cloud, we can tout it all day. Azure is very much, at the end of the day, it's just a multi-tenancy. Even if you have your own server, it doesn't matter. It's all under Microsoft's roof. To me, it's just something that someone still has to have the expertise to use it. But our private cloud it's us. It's in our data center. It's in Reno. I can go there and pull a server out of the rack and put another one in, or my techs or whatever. I don't know where you would do that at Azure. I don't even know what part of the country or world you'd fly to find where your server's living. So there's plenty of box hugger owners of companies that want the cloud, but they still want to know that they have their data and it's not so easily hacked, right? So if it's out in Azure, when's Azure going to get attacked? When is the next attack happening on the next big company that's hosting all my data? Right? So yeah.
So Rick, in closing, this has been a great conversation. Is there anything about ProTechnical you want to get across that I haven't asked you? Anything that you feel like sharing?
Anything about ProTechnical that I feel like sharing? Well, we're here to stay, and I would have to say it's been an interesting ride so far, and we've grown tremendously. We have the Portland market we're in now. We've been in there for about six or 7 years, and different markets. I enjoy running the company. I have a super well-versed team. And like any other business, it has its highs and lows. So you just have to wipe that out and say, hey, we're profitable. Everybody's healthy. We're fortunate enough to be in this market. Yes, a recession is looming. We're in it. How long it's going to stay? We're basically a utility. And Mike Bowe, one of my dear friends, I think he's one of your clients. Actually.
Great guy. Yeah, part of our high performance club. Yeah.
Right. So he's the one that said, at the end of the day, we're a utility now, Rick. And I said, what? He's like, think about it. If we go away, it's like having your power turned off. How's a company function? And so that keeps resonating with me, like when I'm in a sales process to try to convey that, and not so many, not saying we're a utility, but that the importance of having good IT, right? How important it is to make sure, you turn on your water at your home and it flows, right? When's the last time you turned on the water faucet and the water didn't come out? I can't think of a day ever, probably in my whole life, that I turned on the water faucet, no water came out. That's where we're at in IT, especially as things move to the cloud. It's no longer, I can't get to the internet, no big deal. We got everything here. We are a utility. And so, that's what I'll leave you guys with.
Eric, that's very, very, very good insights. And I look forward to working with you guys and the whole team at ProTechnical over the next several years to come and being part of this journey. Folks, if you want to check out Rick's website, we've got a new one in development. I think we're starting it today, Rick, if my memory serves me correct. But go to protechnical.com, check it out, learn more about what Rick's doing in the Reno and now Portland, Oregon areas, and check him out and see what he has to do. If you're looking for, if you're looking for somebody to do feet on the street work in those areas, I'm sure if you give Rick a call, he can either help you out or point you in the right direction to go with. Anyways, Rick, always a pleasure to talk to you, my friend, and catch up. And this time we got to catch up and record it so the whole world can hear our conversation.
Thank you so much for the time, sir. I appreciate it. Thanks for being on my team.
I'm looking forward to it. Folks, thanks for joining this week on the MFP show here on Blog Talk Radio. I know that podcasting is getting to be a big thing in the MSP space. I already have one client doing one in Detroit, Tech Talk Detroit. We're starting a new one. Can't announce it just yet, but it's going to be up in Canada somewhere. Tomorrow, we're recording our first episode. So podcasting is great. Blog Talk Radio is a great platform to launch your podcast on. $39, $40 a month, I think it is, the fee. I don't get paid by them, so you can go there and check it all out. And then we take a lot of these podcasts and put them onto YouTube. And I think Blog Talk Radio also distributes on Apple iTunes and numerous other podcast networks. So check it out. And then don't forget to check out ProTechnical.com. And don't forget to subscribe to our channels on Blog Talk Radio and on YouTube. Once again, folks, thanks for tuning in, and we'll look for you on the next episode. Thanks again.